The hearing into the Manchester City Football Club charges for 115 alleged breaches of financial Premier League play rules will begin on Monday. The hearing is related to the charges for alleged breaches of the rules between 2009 and 2018. A decision from the Independent Commission is expected early next year. The charges were firstly announced in February 2023. It comes at a time where Manchester City have become the dominant force in the English Football League, having won a record 4 Premier League titles in a row. In his words, said he's happy that the hearing starts soon and hopefully finish soon. He in fact stated that he is eager and is looking forward to the decision made by the independent panel. If Manchester City are found guilty, punishment handed down by the Independent Commission could range from a fine and point deduction to expulsion from the Premier League. But despite the severity of some of the sanctions on the table, Guardiola insisted that the case is not a topic of conversation between the players in the dressing room. He said they are not lawyers. It's up to the club level to take it up. He in fact hinted that the rest of the Premier League teams are keen for the club to be found guilty because they are the dominant force and they are jealous of what they do. In this video, we are going to show you the real truth of what the 115 alleged charges is all about, what could be the consequences of the charges, and what are the things related to the charges. Also, the reaction and statement of Pep Guardiola in related to the charges. Like, share, and subscribe for more. Thank you for watching.
Of course, the ongoing case with Manchester City, who face a reported 115 charges from the Premier League for various financial misdemeanors. A story broke this week, though, suggesting that the Premier League could be hit with a legal bill of tens of millions for their case with City, even if they win it. Now, Stefan, you are a man of many talents. You're not just a football finance expert, you're a lawyer as well. Firstly, could you just explain why that would be the case?
So typically, what we know is that the costs regime that will flow from this case will effectively follow the normal rules in English law. And it will be akin to a high court commercial case. And we know that because there is a decision around costs in respect of the Everton case, where we get quite a lot of detail about how the Independent Commission and the Appeal Board look at the costs of these cases. And what they tell you in terms of English law high court commercial cases are that effectively loser pays. But what that doesn't mean is that you get 100% of your cost back from the other side. It'll typically be a range of between 70 and 90%, depending on whether the losing party gets an award against them for indemnity costs, as it's known. So typically for very serious matters, such as fraud or other misdemeanors of that nature, where the party tries to defend itself and loses, then it's quite possible that the other side would get indemnity costs. So in that scenario, you can expect the winning side to get 85 to 90% of their costs back, but it's very rarely going to be 100% of the cost. And clearly that means in this case, you may well have a situation where even if the Premier League win on everything, even then they don't get 100% back, and that could be a few £1 million of costs that they have. Now, in the worst case scenario for the Premier League, where let's say the Independent Commission finds against City, let's say only in respect of non-cooperation, one of the more minor matters, in that scenario you would probably expect the Premier League to be able to get quite a low level of its costs back. And it's possible in that scenario that actually City could get some of their costs back, because effectively City would have won that part of the case. So the Independent Commission would want to come up with an agreement between the parties that allows a fair allocation of the cost for effectively wasted court time. So if you've made a case and failed with it, then you can expect to pay most of the costs of the other side.
Talking of costs, what are you hearing about the amount of money that Manchester City are spending on their legal teams? We know they're going to be the biggest and the best, but what's the figure looking like?
I think it's impossible to predict what the number might be, and that applies to both sides. But we know that it's going to be, in all likelihood, tens of millions of pounds, because just the Premier League's cost on the Everton case alone was over £4.9 million. And the Everton case compared to the City case is a very simple case. So the chances are that both sides have spent in excess of £10 million, and possibly by the time it's finished, possibly in excess of £20 million each. So very, very significant costs here on both sides. It won't just be a case of City spending a fortune. It will absolutely be the Premier League also spending a fortune, because they both got the very best that money can buy in terms of English legal expertise on their side.
Could the Premier League back down in this instance, do you think? Do you think that at some point they might even be outpriced by what Manchester City are doing? I mean, there are reports that Lord Panic, for example, is earning something like £5,000 an hour to work on this case. Is there any feasibility for that kind of scenario?
No, it won't be. None of this will now be decided on costs. I mean, the reality is that we sit here sort of on the eve of whenever it kicks off. We know it's soon, we don't know when. But by this stage, the parties have really already sunk the vast majority of the fees that they're going to spend on the case. So I wouldn't think that at this stage fees would be the key driver. They may come into the mix, but they won't be the key determinant of the strategy going forward. And it's starting to feel quite late for the parties to come up with a settlement between themselves on the other matters as well. So at the moment it does look like it is going to go to the hearing, and we are at some point next year probably going to see 200 to 400 pages of decision that sets out exactly why the Independent Commission has decided as it's decided. I don't think it's now likely to settle at this stage.
I want to ask you about the amount of charges, because 115 is the number that we keep hearing. It's the one in the headlines. But is there any sense that there could be more than that?
No, and look, the actual number is at 129. If you were to look at each individual rule breach, it's a bit of a misnomer anyway, because a lot of those charges are effectively the same charge duplicated over multiple years. So I wouldn't really focus too much on the headline number. It gives a nice headline. It does give a sense of the scale of the case. So it's positive in terms of framing it like that. But in reality, there are only a small number of sort of topics that this is going to cover. You've got the sponsorship, you've got the manager's remuneration, you've got player remuneration, and then you've got non-cooperation. And then there are various things that would be subsequent failings if some of those things are proved. So if sponsorship misdemeanors approved, then of course it does mean that City's numbers are wrong in terms of what's been filed with the Premier League. So you would have the consequential failure of that particular point, and therefore a rule breach. So I wouldn't fixate too much on the rule, on the number itself. It's much more about, for me, it's much more about the seriousness of the allegations. And there's no question these are very serious allegations against City and against the third parties that are also alleged to have been involved in the misdemeanors that are set out within the claim that's been made. And clearly all we know is the charge sheet. There's no public detail about each individual breach and what the Premier League are alleging. So we've had to piece it together. But we are sure that these are very serious allegations, and therefore that's why we're going to see a very long hearing, and we're going to see them really evaluated in a very serious manner by this three-person panel.
Speaking of public detail, it's reported this case, the hearing to start next Monday, the 16th of September. Will people be able to watch this? Will we be able to get some details from this? How will that all play out?
Yeah, I mean, look, we haven't even got confirmation that it does start on Monday. I've felt for a long time that it would have been in everybody's interest for it to at least have been publicly announced as to when it was being heard, just so that people could get a feel for how long it was taking, when it was kicking off, and what was actually happening in the background. But it will not be held in public, so it is specifically within the Premier League rules. it has to be private and confidential. So the likelihood is that we'll get no information whatsoever. And I would really caution people to be quite careful about any rumours that they do hear about what's going on in there, because the reality as well is that both parties, when you have a 3-person panel deciding on it, even parties that are listening and that are both up against each other within the hearing, even they won't really know exactly which way it's going. They'll have a feel for whether certain points have landed with the panel or maybe with an individual on the panel, but they won't have that great a feel for how it's going. So I would just be cautious about really believing anything that you hear rumour-wise about how things are going. And in terms of the fine detail, we'll get absolutely nothing. Sadly, that just is the way that private arbitration of this nature works.
When do you think we'll hear a verdict for this then?
I think it'll take quite some time. If it's true that this really is a 10-12 week hearing, in a civil law context, that's quite a long hearing. That means that the panel is going to hear a lot of information, a lot of witness evidence, a lot of expert evidence, and a lot of submission from barristers. And I think it will then take quite some time for this 3-person panel then to write up its decision. And it does have to write it up. So Richard Masters confirmed when the Premier League launched a couple of weeks ago that we would get a written set of reasons for the decision that's made. And that's correct. And I would expect that to be, it could be 200 to 400 pages long. It will be incredibly detailed, but you would imagine that kind of detail and that kind of analysis and sort of focus from the panel is going to take some time for them to put together, because they will all be going on to their own other roles and other arbitrations and other hearings that they're also working on. So they're going to have to find time between themselves to write up those reasons, and it's going to take quite a while. In a High Court perspective, if this was a High Court hearing, it would take months. I mean, it would take, possibly as long as a year before we were to get a decision from this hearing. I would expect it not to be a year, but I would expect it to be a number of months.
We will not be banned.
You won't be banned?
No. What I think, what I trust with my chairman, with my CEO, what they explained to me, I trust them. If it's happened, because UEFA decide that, we will accept it and move forward.
UEFA have opened an investigation after the allegations of breaking FFP. I wonder what you might have to say about that.
I think the club made a statement yesterday, so I could not add more than that. So club is open, so hopefully can finish as soon as possible, and UEFA can decide what he sees. I trust, I said last season, I trust a lot what the club has done, because I know them, but hopefully they can solve it as soon as possible and stop to, for this environment.
You've achieved so much here. Are you concerned at all that your legacy at this football club will be tainted by the allegations and whatever UEFA decide to do?
No, absolutely not.
So you're quite happy about where the club is and where you are?
Yeah, definitely.
Have you spoken to the hierarchy here at the club regarding the allegations made regarding FFP? Have you spoken to them, and are you satisfied with what they've told you?
Yeah, they know it, how people press, push to find something wrong. But what I said, I work with them, I know them for a long, long time. I work with them for a long, long time, not just here, and I trust a lot of what they have done. After that, we'll see. When I wish is clarify as quick as possible. Hopefully UEFA can come as soon as possible and see what we have done, and it's not good, and we have to be, okay, we will accept it. And if everything is right, okay, at the end it's going to finish and keep going, move forward.
And regardless, it doesn't affect your position? Regardless, when you say it's clarified, regardless of what that
In my position?
Yeah.
My position depends if I lose games. And after that, my position can be in trouble. But if we win all the managers, we are safe. Well, only what I can do is I'm not involved. I'm not involved with what happened in the locker room, on and off the pitch, in my players, with my team. That is, and after that, I'm part of the club, and like I know them, I sustain them 100%.
From your point of view as a manager, how worried are you about the prospect of a Champions League ban for you? Because obviously it's the biggest competition in the world, and every manager wants to.
Club making a statement yesterday was clarified. He was in the perfect. They have done absolutely following the rules, and after that, I cannot say anything else. So I don't know. So tomorrow have a game, and we're going to play a lot of games. And what's going to happen is going to happen.
There have been some allegations this week about the way the club has behaved in relation to financial fair play and the rules. Do you think that in any way undermines what you and your players have achieved on the field and what you're continuing to try to achieve on the field?
Well, I think about that issue, the club making a statement the last Friday about what happened about the stolen mails. So what I can say personally and the club, of course I trust a lot with the club, what they have done. And of course we want to follow the rules, what the UEFA, the FIFA, or all the statements in the Premier League. They do what we have to do. So a part of that, believe me, I'm completely honest. So I don't know what happened because I'm a manager, I am focused what happened on the pitch, in the locker room, on off the pitch, but about the business, about they handle this kind of situation, I'm completely out of that. But I am part of the club, I'm supported absolutely the club, and we want to do what really we have to do in terms of the rules. About undermine what we have done or not, so the opinions is free in that terms. We know what we win, we'll be good accept, we will lose. We are not going with accept about because we are not able to win. So at the end, focus what you have to do on the pitch is only we can do.
And I understand that you are absolutely no part of the process and the things that are being talked about, but equally, some people may now look at you even when you win and say, well, you're only winning because the club has been spending money on players that it shouldn't have been spending.
I think that's said for the last decade. So the people is saying about that club in the last decade just win because we have money. I don't think because we think good things. So
but there is a difference.
That is the issue. Always stay here because they pass to stay in one level and to achieve another level. You need a lot of time, and of course money. But a lot of time. When you invest more, then this gap, the time reduced. To achieve that gap.
Last one. There is a difference between spending a lot of money and spending money that maybe you shouldn't have been spending because of the rules.
You said that maybe.
Well, that's what some people will now look at your team and say. How do you feel about that?
To accept it. When the people say it, you win because we have money, it's okay. What I would say, it's okay, I'll accept it. We believe we work a lot. Not just the manager, in that case it's me, so our staff, and especially the players. So always I said many times, we cannot achieve what we achieve the big clubs in Europe, not just in all the world in the big leagues, is because they have to spend. And spend why? Because we need good players. All the ideas that we have, without good players we cannot do that. So I said many times here in the press conference. So the first is because we have that opportunity, that after that, if the people say just about that, we have to accept it.
One team that did spend big in the transfer window again was Chelsea, one of your rivals traditionally in the top four and the top six. What did you make of their approach and what they did?
No, it's not my business.
How does it affect the dynamic in the Premier League when a club spends so much? I mean, we're talking more than 500 million in the last two windows.
No, it's not my business. It's a surprise because it's not a club estate. And what I'm concerned is the fact that we won 11 titles in the last 5 years, being the 5 or 6 team spend net in the Premier League. So this is all I'm concerned what we have done so far in this time.
Pep, if City had spent 550 million or so in 2 windows, what do you think the reaction from the football public would have been?
I know.
But
I know what will happen.
Do you think you'd have got a lot of criticism?
It happened in the last 5-6 years.
But I mean, you've never spent close to anything like that though in 2 transfer windows.
Well, I said, so being right now the 5th or 6th Premier League team in the Spain net, in the last we won 11 trophies. That is the 4 Premier Leagues in the last 5 years. That is what really counts to us. You know that? But you know what Chelsea has done, what the other club has done. It's not my business. Business, I know exactly what we are working and try to do our best. And of course, we need the good players, like Chelsea believes, and Arsenal believes, and Liverpool and United believes that without the good players you cannot compete. Not just here in Premier League in Europe, and you have to spend. Now the market is wow, it's a lot, but it's what Chelsea has decided to do is not my business. Honestly, I never involve in the opinions in other clubs because there are regulation and rules that they have to do it. We were accused. 8, I not forget that 8 and 9 teams in the Premier League sent a letter to the Premier League and another one to be banned, to be out of the Premier League. So that happened to us when the other 5th team spent net in the last 5 years, when we start to win titles. So this is a reality.
So you think there's criticism in one rule for City, and then other teams behaving in another way?
Where we come from, for sure, yeah, definitely. Definitely.
You've said before that you want the issues that the club are facing to be dealt with as quickly as possible. It looks as though we believe that the case starts on Monday. Have you got a view? Will you be glad when it's all over?
Yeah. Start soon, hopefully finish soon. Independent panel will decide, and looking forward for the decision.